Hey, well, good morning, good evening, good night, wherever you are, whenever you are listening to this podcast. My name is Philip, pastor of Journey here in Elgin, Texas. This is our Journey Through Scripture series. This is loaded on a Tuesday, so I hope you had a good weekend and your week has started off well. This Tuesday and Thursday, so today and on Thursday, we're going to be looking at Genesis 19 and 20, with the focus obviously on chapter 20 with the Ten Commandments. But these are the foundational understanding of God and the law that He has given us. And I feel like we do need to spend a little bit extra time on this, and I encourage you to read through slowly and to really think about what this means and how it impacts us. So if you hadn't had a chance, I encourage you, pause this, take a moment, read Genesis chapter 19 and chapter 20, and then come join us. All right, so last week we finished in Genesis chapter 18 with Jethro, the priest from Midian, who came and helped kind of organize the people, and they created this system where they could judge the problems that people are having together. And now we find the people getting to Mount Sinai. And so they're beginning to approach the mountain. This is a very important time. This is now Moses has kind of come full circle, if you will, right? Where he was speaking to God through the burning bush. Now the people are back in that same area, and they're about to hear from God again. Chapter 19 is kind of the setup, if you will, to the Ten Commandments, the God giving the Ten Commandments, and it really shows the importance. I don't think we can underplay how important the Ten Commandments are to people of faith, but to the world. They truly have transformed the world, and they have brought so much good into the world. Whether people believe in God or not, if they will follow the Ten Commandments, that brings good into the world. And they're just a powerful set of principles and understandings of our relationship with God, our relationship with each other. And there in chapter 19, Moses went up to God, and the Lord called to him from the mountain. It says, "This is what you are to say to the descendants of Jacob, and what you are to tell the people of Israel." It says, "You yourselves have seen what I did to Egypt, and how I carried you on eagle's wings and brought you to myself. Now, if you obey me fully and keep my covenant, then out of all nations you will be my treasured possession." So, important to understand, God didn't just bring the people out of Egypt to set them free. He brought them out of Egypt to bring them to Himself, to be able to use them to be a messenger to the world around them, right? That it wasn't just about freedom. That was a very important aspect of freeing them from slavery, but it was freeing them for a purpose. God wanted them to become more like Him, to enter into a special relationship with Him. It continues on, it says, "Although the whole earth is mine," right? So God is acknowledging that all of this is His. "You will be for me a kingdom of priests and a holy nation." So He is calling on them to be holy, to choose to follow and to respond to God's teaching. And that's a call to all of us as well, that we can choose to be holy, to live according to God's purpose and desire. And I want to say, a couple weeks, or I guess last Tuesday, I spent some time talking about the importance of the idea of freedom, and that God does desire for us to be free. And I believe that applies to nations, to be free, that we should value freedom. But there's more to just being free, that there is a responsibility that comes with that, that if we want to maintain that freedom, that we need to live according to the principles of God, right? That is how we maintain that freedom. There was a French philosopher, and he was talking. Let's see, there it is. Alexis de Tocqueville. I know I'm butchering that. My French, I'm not up on my French pronunciations, so we're just going to call him Alex. And he wrote a book. It was called Democracy in America, and he was dealing with this issue of freedom and liberty. And he said this. He says, "Whoever seeks in liberty anything other than liberty itself is born for servitude." In other words, while liberty is magnificent, the only thing liberty guarantees is liberty, not goodness, not morality, not integrity. Liberty must be accompanied by higher values, because liberty alone will lead to moral chaos and ultimately servitude. Now, I think that's very important to understand, because that is the foundation of our country, but I believe that's based on a biblical understanding of freedom and adhering to a higher moral authority, right? That you need both, or you're going to lose both. And I think that speaks a lot to some of the craziness and the chaos that's going on around us now, is that we desire to have freedom, but in our secular society, in many ways, we have turned our back on looking at a higher moral authority. And you can't have both. And it's interesting, if you only want freedom without a higher moral authority, it actually leads to servitude. That's something we see. That's a natural state of human nature. And so while we should be standing up for freedom, we also have to, at the same time, stand up for basic biblical values and aspiring to a higher set of morals that we see here in the Ten Commandments. And we see that throughout history, right? That the more secular and further away from God a country becomes, the less free they always become. And it's something that we experience to a certain extent here, and it's something that as Christians we need to affirm both the importance of freedom, but that with that freedom comes a desire to seek and to follow a higher moral authority that is found in God and God alone. And so we see that starting in chapter 19. That's very important to understanding what's going on here with the Ten Commandments. Moses is talking to the people. He's telling them all this. And then the people respond together. He says, "We will do everything the Lord has said," right? So they're in a good place. They're happy right now. They're not grumbling. They've had plenty to eat, plenty to drink. So they're like, okay, that sounds great. So they're in the mode for listening to God, which is good. And then God starts kind of laying out how important this is. And if you read there through chapter 19, you get a glimpse of the magnitude of what is to come. There in verse 12, it says, "Put limits for the people around the mountain and tell them, be careful that you do not approach the mountain or touch the foot of it. Whoever touches the mountain is to be put to death." Now that phrase, "to be put to death," that's used quite a bit here in the in Exodus to basically explain how important something is. We'll get to some of the laws and things like that will connect, be put to death, and there's actually no indication that anyone was ever put to death for breaking that law. But what it's doing is it's elevating the importance of that. And I'm not saying that someone wouldn't have died if they would have passed the barriers, but that's a way of explaining that, hey, this is extremely important. So you're not even supposed to come close to this mountain, because God is going to be on this mountain, and it is going to be holy ground, and He is going to be delivering something to you that is unbelievable great and more important than you can even imagine. And so we have the people gathered there, and then it's on the morning of the third day. There was thunder and lightning with the thick cloud over the mountain and the very loud trumpet blast. Everyone in the camp trembled. Right? I mean, just the build up to this is incredible, and it reminds us of how life-changing this is going to be. And we've grown up, if you're listening to this and in the United States, we've grown up with a basic understanding of the Ten Commandments, right? That's kind of the framework of our legal system. And so it's kind of second nature to us. But it's important for us to remember that this was revolutionary. This was something that was totally different. There were lots of things about the Ten Commandments that were unique to history. It's the only covenant relationship between a deity, between God and his people, that there is a covenant relationship that is bound in this. Usually that's not the case. This is a relationship that is being developed between God and his people. We also see that this is one of the first things where the focus is not just on the people's relationship with the ruler, right? That's typically what these sets of commands would be. It basically just dealt with, okay, here you're the peasants, here's how you need to deal with the ruler. No, the Ten Commandments go beyond that. It talks about the relationship we have with God, with the ruler, but it also lays the foundation for interpersonal relationship. Like it matters how we treat others. That was something that was very new, right? That was elevated to this place of importance. That the way that you treat others is just as important as the way that you interact with God. And in fact, it flows from how you interact with God, leads to how you interact with other people. That those are all wrapped into one. That's very important. It expanded more than just religion, but to how we actually live our life. And again, this is about bringing goodness into the world. And this is the Ten Commandments, and the idea of the Ten Commandments are actually an affront to evil, right? That there are those who would prefer just not to have the Ten Commandments as a basis. This was interesting. I was just reading about this, and again, to me, this just explains the importance and that the Ten Commandments of how they fly in the face of evil and how they are a threat to evil. You have one of the things that we see that Hitler wrote about was his basic hatred of the idea of the Ten Commandments, and he would use Christianity and religion where he could, but there was a line in one of the songs that the Hitler Youth would sing. It said, "We are the joyous Hitler Youth. We do not need any Christian virtue. Our leader is our Savior. The Pope and Rabbi shall be gone. We want to be pagans once again." Right? This idea of getting rid of this religious idea that foundation is rooted in the Ten Commandments. Hitler a couple times made some comments about that. He says the Ten Commandments have lost their validity. The struggle for world domination is fought entirely between the Germans and the Jews. Right? He saw that the Jews brought in this idea of the Ten Commandments, and that kept him, if you will, from dominating the world. Now that's an extreme example. I do understand that, but it shows how the Ten Commandments fly directly in the face of evil, and they are designed to bring good into the world. And even if you don't believe in God, if you follow the basic premise and principles of the Ten Commandments, the world is going to be a better place, right? Because it brings good into the world. And so we see at the end of chapter 19, Moses now has gone up and talked to God. Now he comes back, and the people are all gathered, and you can imagine they are listening to every word, right? We have this unbelievable scene that says they're terrified because there's lightning and thunder, and God is about to speak to them. And in chapter 20, it starts off and it says, "And God spoke all of these words." Okay, that is vital for us to understand and believe. If you if you believe that the Ten Commandments were just a human creation, then eventually you are going to break the Ten Commandments and not care about it. Right? The Ten Commandments are given to us by God. And that is vital for us to understand and to believe, that these were directly from God's mouth to the people. They're directly from God's mouth to us today. Because if that were not the case, you can easily rationalize away breaking any of the Ten Commandments. Right? If they are created by humans, then they can be broken by humans. But they are not. They are created by God. And it begins that you shall have no other gods before me. Right? So the first one, and that is after God says, I am the Lord your God who brought you out of Egypt, out of the land of slavery. You shall have no other gods before me. Right? So just a reiteration reminding the people that, hey, you were in Egypt. That was a land with many gods, but there is no other God before me. Who are you going to choose to put your allegiance to? Who are you going to choose to live for? You know, and today that's important for us to make that decision. As we think about the Ten Commandments, who is our God? Or what is our God? What motivates you and is the driving force behind the way you live your life? If it is not God the Creator, then you are actually putting another God before Him. Right? If you are living for money, if you're living for comfort, if you're living for fame, if you are living just to provide for your family, whatever, there can be good things that can be motivating you on how you live. But if any of those surpasses your belief and foundational understanding of God and Him calling you and being the motivating factor behind how you're living your life, you're breaking the first commandment, right? That we should have no other gods before Him. Sometimes we dismiss this one and say, "Oh, well, I don't go to another religion's worship services, or I don't worship another idol or things like that." Now, this is much bigger than that. It's what is it that is the motivational factor behind how you're living your life? If it is anything other than God, then we are elevating something above Him, and we are to have no other gods before Him. I'm going to go ahead and stop here because I want to really get into the Ten Commandments. The first part of the Ten Commandments deal with our relationship to God, and then it transitions into our relationship with each other. But it all starts with us believing, is He truly the Creator? Is He a God who is above all other gods? Right? And I hope that you will make that decision today and that you will live your life in response to the God who has given us the Ten Commandments. We'll see you on Thursday.